Welcome everybody to the OpenJ9 community call. First item on our agenda, as always, is the Ask the OpenJ9 community. So if there's anybody who has particular questions they want to bring up before the community or wants to discuss, I'd love to hear them. All right. Well, we're giving people a minute to think if they have anything they want to bring up. I just want to confirm with you, Mark, that you are scheduled to do a talk on JIT verbose logs on April 18th.
Yeah, so I was just putting a reminder for myself in my calendar because I hadn't remembered to do that. So thanks for the reminder.
All right. And Alex Mitchik has agreed to do a talk on Metronome GC the week following that. So we'll have some good short intro talks on some of these items for this call. Mark, I'm going to broadcast that you'll be giving that JIT verbose talk on Twitter.
Load up the pressure.
Yeah. All right. So then there's a couple of items that we've called out in this section around discussion of JRE packages. We have an issue that we've created at Adopt. It seems to be on their backlog there. I think if we want to be pushing this forward, we need to sort of pony up the people to make this happen. So is this I'm not sure how much work there is involved in this. I'm hoping it's fairly straightforward, some work with zipping up the right package. I know that running make images creates both a JDK and a JRE image, so we may just need to zip both of those and update them. I don't see anybody on the call right now who's been, oh, maybe I do. Anybody who does more of the build work at Adopt have a view on how hard this would be?
Are you on mute, Stuart?
We're not hearing you, Stuart.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Yeah, sorry, my audio wasn't working, so I couldn't actually hear anything on the call either. Okay, sorry, so I've missed, anything that was asked of me there.
Oh, we were just wondering if anybody, who's done more of the build work around Adopt, such as yourself, would have an opinion on how hard it would be to get the JRE packages, particularly for 8, provided on the Adopt website as well.
I guess it's a case of setting up the jobs to do whatever is needed to build them. I don't know how difficult that is, to be honest.
I believe they're built already.
Okay.
It's just a matter of, I think, just a matter of zipping up an extra package and
right. It sounds like in principle it would be that difficult then.
Okay.
So yeah, I think you've got an issue raised against that, haven't you?
Yes.
Is that right? Yep. And I guess it hasn't had any movement on it, which is why you're asking.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try and push some discussion of that in the Adopt OpenJDK Slack channels as well then.
All right, that'd be appreciated.
Yep. Okay.
Follow-up question to that in terms of expectation for testing around JRE package that would be available for download. I guess ideally it's the same level of testing. I'm not sure where we're at with number of machines to be able to run a whole suite, but
I don't think all of the tests that we run against a full JDK will run successfully against just a JRE. Certainly some of the system tests expect some of the tools from the JDK to be available at test execution time. So yeah, I don't think it'll be as simple as just running the same tests against a JRE package.
So I guess we should determine what is the subset of tests we can run against it to start with.
One way to do that might be to run them and see what happens. I don't think it'll be easy to find that list. That's probably the easiest way to find that list.
Yeah. Okay. I'll create an item in the test area for that.
Okay. The link to the JRE discussion item at Adopt is in the minutes, so we can sort of tie all these things together. That would be good.
Yeah, it's issue 262 in the build repository, yeah?
Yes.
I guess. Yep. Yeah, I've got it on my screen now. Thanks.
And so the other item here is the discussion of the non-compressed refs packages. I will admit that I have not made progress on that, so I will endeavor to have that discussion at least started for the next meeting.
Yeah, that one comes up kind of once a week at least from somebody, so I think it is one that we should start figuring out a story there, even if it's just the brain dead, have a small heap and big heap binaries that we could build with compressed refs and non-compressed refs respectively.
Yeah, I believe we had agreed on that approach, or to start down that path at least as a temporary solution. I just haven't made any progress on it yet. So.
Yeah, great. Okay.
And I would say from the build pipeline perspective, that temporary solution is the easiest one to proceed with from build and test perspective.
Agreed. I'd like to see us get to the long-term solution of having one package instead of needing to build this separately. But I think that's a much larger effort.
I think there's a conversation that's warranted around that, right?
Mark, you just froze, so I'm
interested in having a print binary and are willing to pay the price that they can only use certain heap sizes with each one, or do they really want a single fit? No matter what heap size I choose, I can get the right thing from one binary, and I'm willing to pay some possibly substantial increase in the binary size to do that. Or do we have to do a bunch of work to reduce that cost, I guess?
Yeah, I think for Java 8, those are much more of a build time decision. We may be able to make those a JLink time decision for 9 and later. Provided you have the package you can.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Okay. Yeah. All right.
All right. So we have a couple of other to-dos here around getting some of the documentation updated and rebranded. Don't know that we've assigned anybody or asked anybody to take a look at them. So if they are things that somebody would like to jump on, I think this would be good. I know I have an action to at least create a list of topics that we might want people to be blogging about or presenting here. And I know Sue was going to look up the most popular docs from the IBM docs, but she's on vacation this week, I believe. We'll have to wait for next week to get some update on that. Are there any other Ask the Community type discussions we should be having now? Anybody have any questions they want to raise at this point? All right, then let's jump into sort of the general business part of the call. Irina, are you on to talk through some of the issue counts?
Yes, I'm here. Okay. So I had to do a breakdown per, to separate issues and PRs. I've done that for most of the queries here. Also a breakdown I started last week, a breakdown per JDK. So that's mostly done. So I would say it's like 85% done. I have a couple of components that I still need to do the breakdown. So I won't go one by one in all this. I'll just look at some overall trends. So if you look overall, the issues is climbing a teensy bit, a little bit. So from a total of 256 to 263. And if you look at the work in progress as well as other queries, you can see that you can correlate the climbing with the fact that we're working on the JDK 10. So we have more PRs on the JDK 10 and more build issues as well, and so on. So so to summarize, I'm almost done with my to-dos. I'll still clean it up a little bit for next week. I think overall the trend is good. And any other questions, anything else missing here?
I guess not directly related to this list, but sort of related based on the numbers. For JDK 9 items versus JDK 10, as we're sort of shifting gears and focusing on Java 10, are some of those JDK 9 issues now less important to us?
I mean, I would say it depends if they're common with the JDK 10. If they're specific to JDK 9, I would see them less important.
Yeah, I guess we have to go on a case-by-case basis, but in some cases we may choose not to, you know, especially around build and test stuff, not to focus on the 9 and put the effort on the 10 stuff.
When you say test stuff, Shelley, I'm assuming you mean test infrastructure, not actual test failures?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that seems like a reasonable approach. We should be shifting our work towards getting that 9 is no longer a supported release.
So 13 of those JDK 9 issues are just kind of epic placeholders for the various JEPs. So it's maybe not as scary a number as it looks like, because a lot of those JEPs are continuing. And then another one is an issue that's tagged against 9, 10, and 11. So a couple of them look like ones we might want to address, because it's marked at 9, but like, for example, default shared cache size is too small. That's tagged against JDK 9, but it's probably applies to 10 and 11 as well, right?
Yeah, I think the tagging on that was we probably don't want to make the change to 8.
Yeah. Yeah, 9 and up. Anyway, so I'm not sure that 19 number is quite as concerning as maybe it looks when you dig into what's actually there.
Also, probably not as easy to wipe out the 19 and do nothing. So,
right, unless we retarget those JEPs, which I don't know. Maybe that's the right thing to do for the ones that are ongoing anyway. Right? I mean, nothing's going to go into 9 anymore, so. I guess maybe some of those should actually be a more generic kind of JDK target, not like it's a future JDK or something like that, as opposed to a specific version, maybe.
I need to look at the particular issues. Some of them are tagged against particular projects, Valhalla or Panama, where we know that it's a future thing, but haven't know where it'll land. I'll take an action to take a look at the JDK 9 issues after this call and see what I believe can be moved forward and what can be closed.
Okay. So I guess the fact that it's 19 did point out a problem. It's a good thing we're tracking it.
Is there anything else anybody wants to discuss on this? Any other questions around issue lists?
Only that there's a lot of them in the meeting minutes. I don't know if we want to necessarily have this huge section of, I don't know, maybe there's, I wonder if there's a way to present this. It's not.
Yeah, so I had the same observation, like this is not the nicest way to present them. However, I had the observation, but I didn't have the fix for it yet. So I'll look up a better way to propose it so that, we have a story as opposed to like a long string of links here. So yes, point taken.
Thanks.
If we could organize them in some kind of table and you could see, the past 5 weeks or something, or past 3 weeks, that might be interesting.
Yeah, that's what I had in mind too. I'll try out something before next week. I won't come to the next call, but I'll pass it on to someone before the call.
All right. Moving on to the discussion of machines.
So you should have received the note saying we have a go on the Windows machines.
Yes. We got those last night, I believe, and I've started talking with Adam about how to get them added into the build farm. So a big thank you to everybody involved in getting 4 Windows machines for the OpenJ9 project, and to IBM for paying for them.
Yay.
Does anybody have an update on the machines we were pursuing through UNB?
Sorry, who was that?
I'm asking if anybody has an update on that. I'm sure if Charlie's on the call.
So I said pursuing through who?
Through UNB.
University of New Brunswick.
Ah, okay. Haven't heard of them before.
Stuart, you need to come to Canada and do an East Coast tour.
Sounds like it.
Mark, do you have any more details on this from the OMR side?
No, I haven't heard any more about the UNB machines, I'm afraid. I did talk to George earlier in the week about the machines that he was talking to Microsoft about. I think that conversation's a little bit stalled right now. He was expecting maybe some progress in May. But the good news is that we got these software machines from IBM, so that will tide us over at least for a while. And through that batch, we got machines for OpenJ9, for OMR, and for Adopt, I believe. So,
yeah, we got 2 for Adopt as well. One for JCK testing and one for regular testing.
Yeah, awesome. So that's good. So that should make it a lot easier for us to add the Windows platform in as a release for 0.9 when we put it out.
Okay, I think we need to highlight our build farm sponsors on the OpenJ9 website.
Yes, we should.
I'll open an issue on the website and see if somebody from Sue's team can take a look at that.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. If there's nothing else on machines, then let's jump to talking about the end user experience. We continue to try to reach out to end users. Does anybody have any particular contacts they've made in the past week about people who might be interested to coming to discuss OpenJ9 on these calls?
Nothing's really happened on, at least from my end, for the last week on that. Still hoping that if we can add some content, some informational content here for using OpenJ9, that might help attract some people to attend, and then maybe be willing to offer feedback. In the end, I think we just keep reaching out, keep trying to attract people as we find out that or pull it back to the community and feed it into our plans. It's the best we can do.
All right. Is anyone aware of any new articles around OpenJ9? I know Sue has been looking at recording these and linking to them from the website. So rather than having a discussion about this, maybe ask that if you find any articles, please either link them to these minutes or open an issue on the website and make sure we get them updated. Okay. So looking at the query from the list of end user items, I know we've had this pull request around automating the build instructions using Ansible. Has that been merged at this point, or is there anything blocking it?
It hasn't been merged, and I don't think any of the committers have tried it. That's the main thing that's blocking it right now.
All right.
And that was something I was supposed to try over the last week, but unfortunately I didn't get to it.
All right, I think if we can stick a note in there just to update the developer to let them know that we're still interested, just need a chance to test it out again. Looking at a couple of the other issues that I'd like to highlight from the user raised, our Slack-in instance is broken. So I've opened a pull request against our website to have it updated after figuring out how to redeploy it. But I think we need to document how we've set that up somewhere so it's not a rediscovery process every time. And maybe set up some kind of aliasing to make it a little easier to deploy the tool regularly. And then the other item here that I think might be a larger discussion is that some of the JSTAR tools don't work with OpenJ9. This is things like JStack and JCommand. A user has pointed this out. Historically, the message from IBM has been that the Java core that we have and some of the other J9 specific tools provide the similar functionality, and so we weren't going to implement the JSTAR tools. I think we may want to reopen that or revisit that decision.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of the touch points that people have for the project, right? And when there's stuff missing, like it came up, I guess we rediscovered this most recently with the OpenWhisk project, right? Where the performance features of OpenJ9 were attractive to them, but some of the lack of tooling support was a concern, and I don't think they've actually merged the pull request that lets them run on top of OpenJ9 yet, in part because of that lack of a tooling story. So I think we need to figure that out. Either have an alternative story that we can offer, which probably isn't the best solution, or figuring out how we can do as much as we can with the existing tools to provide the capabilities that people are expecting to have. Recognizing that may not be an easy thing to do in all cases.
Yeah, I think we.
Sorry, does the it's going to be a weird question to ask on an open call, but does the IBM J9 team still have a dedicated RAS people, developers?
They've pretty much been rolled into the VM team at this point.
Okay.
Separate defect queue, but it's service
Yeah.
file, same people.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering if there was a person that we could kind of tap to do an initial look at for this.
I think it would help if we had an idea of which tools are most important to people, and also some idea of which tools will continue to be supported by OpenJDK. I hate to invest in implementing a tool that's dying in the next release.
So I guess if anybody has input on that or knows people they could talk to get input like that, we should probably get it stored into that issue so that we can start to move that conversation forward.
Agreed.
Is that something Tim would have awareness of?
Possibly.
Yeah. Tag him on that and ask.
We may even be able to get some details out of the what's new sections on the JDK 9 and 10 or the release notes from OpenJDK. If any of those tools have been deprecated, it probably will be called out in those release notes. Were there other items in the user raised set of issues that we want to go over? Mark, you have an action to write an initial blog about this call.
Yep. I have written something up. I haven't put it out in the open yet because I was waiting for the Slack-in problem to get fixed, because one of the things in my note is if you want to join this call, you have to join our Slack channel, because that's the only place we actually tell people how to join the call. But you can't do that right now because the Slack-in piece isn't working. So if we can get that fixed, then I'll post that article somewhere. I don't think we've really resolved the blog question, blog location question yet either. But I think I can just I'll just put it on my personal blog, despite the sparseness of blog articles there, and we could just link to it from there and tweet it, etc.
All right, sounds good to me. For the Slack-in problem, there is a PR against the website. We just need to get it reviewed and merged.
So is Sue the only person that knows how that is all pieced together? I saw you tried to get Esther to help, but
I was able to piece it together, or to piece together something that seems to work. Whether it's equivalent to what she had already put together, I'm not entirely sure. Yeah. So the thing works. It's mentioned in that particular, or in the issue that we have on the OpenJ9 page. I might want to go over it with her when she gets back to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Just a reminder, we have another week before we've agreed that we should close on the blog issue about whether to use Jekyll, WordPress, or something else. So if anybody has further thoughts on that, please update that issue. The wiki item, I don't think we've made any more progress on in terms of looking at the access control or defining where we would store data. So, just getting a little cognizant of time, given we've got another 7 minutes left before we run out of time for this call. So for the 0.9 release, Mark, you have a support proposal one of the issues. Do you want to give a brief overview of that here?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the main way I would summarize it is that I think our OpenJ9 project support statement around JDK releases should really be more or less based upon the support that's being provided by the OpenJDK community. So, for now, those statements are primarily made by Oracle because Oracle's kind of taking care of OpenJDK 8 and beyond. And their public plans for support kind of end in January of 2019. Basically, a little bit after JDK 11 becomes released and becomes the next LTS release. So the usual way things work is that some people in the community step forward and become maintainers. So for example, I think for JDK 7, that's Red Hat and Azul are the community maintainers at OpenJDK. I think IBM is willing to help from what I've heard, but I think we really need to have a broader community step forward and say that we're going to support JDK 8 longer than that January 2019. So I think that will happen, but for now, the only public support statements around JDK 8 in the open community are Oracle's, and so there's an issue which the number escapes me at the moment, but I'll put a link into the minutes if it's not there already. That basically says, expresses what our support is based on what OpenJDK support statements are there for the current releases, and then it has some projections for out to kind of the end of 2019 or so, just as here's what we expect to happen given what's been said about JDK releases at OpenJDK over the next year and a half, I guess, a little more than a year and a half. Then there's also through some of the feedback that came back from Dan and Tim Ellison. We should probably make statements around platform support as well. So, an additional table that kind of mimics the table that OpenJDK has around this. It's a little bit of a complicated, it's a little bit complicated to go through all the platforms and say what you support for which JDK release, etc. But, that's kind of what we have to do. There's no real easy way around it, given that OpenJ9 supports multiple JDK releases in a particular OpenJ9 release. Sorry I didn't prepare for that statement, so it was a little bit jumbled, but the issue is probably a little bit better organized than my brain. So anybody who wants to go and read that issue, I welcome anyone's feedback there, and I'm trying to drive consensus, I guess. The discussion in the actual work item has kind of died down a little bit, so I've set kind of a end of the week target for people to give additional feedback there. And I did ask in the public committers channel for people to at least read it this week. And then once that happens early next week, I'll call for a vote. If there's no further feedback that make changes, I'll call for a vote among all the committers, since essentially this is a support statement that our community is making. And so the committers are the ones who are committing to it. So I think we should have an official vote where everyone, explicitly says, yes, I'll stand behind this this support statement, and we'll go forward from there.
Great. Sounds like a good plan. Thanks for all the work of putting that together, Mark.
Yeah, no problem.
The issue number is 1616 for anybody who's interested, and there's a link in the minutes already.
Thanks, Dan.
We're down to sort of the last 3 minutes before we're going to get timed out on this call. Is there anything else that anybody wants to discuss in those last 3 minutes? All right, given the silence, I'm going to say thank you to everybody for attending, and we'll host the next call next Wednesday at Eastern time again. So thanks everybody, and have a great week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.